Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 36 of TLDR Podcast. Another week is gone. Plenty to talk about here on the podcast. We're going to start by just going around the horn. Tyler, baseball is in full preseason swing. I mean, the scores in preseason I feel like are just outrageous at times. So what is your feeling about the early parts of the preseason here?
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have baseball back. Great to see fans at some spring training games too. That was such a welcoming sight to see this weekend. Seeing fans back in the stands and all that, even at limited capacity. But yeah, in spring training, I'm not too worried about wins and losses. It's more just kind of seeing how guys are feeling. And Trevor Bauer was out there today for the Dodgers. Looked pretty good. Kenley Jansen looked great today. So just things like that, kind of just individual performances, seeing some young prospects is always fun. And there's always a few roster spots that are up for grabs. So this is the time for you to kind of see that and see those battles. So that's what spring training is all about. It's all about kind of tuning up for the season and making sure everyone's feeling good.
Love it. Speaking of battles, namaste, Eric. Welcome back.
Thank you, Traden. Last week I was in the Mike Richards jersey. This week I got the Doughty jersey. Of course, I blame you, Traden, for making us talk about the Kings. They lose 2 games in a row. The streak is over. It's all your fault.
Hey,
but yeah.
To be fair, I think, did you guys lose to the Wild twice, or was it just the one time?
The Wild twice, but we did get a point.
1.5 times.
The Wild have been on a tear. I mean, they have been playing so well. So just keep your heads up. It may not last, and looks like the Blues are going the wrong direction too. Alex, how have you been, man? The NBA is. I mean, I think we're hitting the All-Star break soon, but I mean, there's still a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, the All-Star break's coming up. It's been a weird week in the NBA. Some more games have been canceled. Hopefully they kind of get that all sorted out. On a totally different note, I don't know if any of you guys watch Letterkenny?
Yes.
What? Okay. When you said to be fair, I really want to be like, to be fair, but I didn't, because I was trying to be, but I said anyway. So I guess they only knows what I know what I'm talking about. Ridiculous. Oh man. Letterkenny though, for that TV show we talked about episodes,
oh my God.
ago, check that one out.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I heard that's a good one.
It's great.
Ted Lasso on awards, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, it's
good.
It's
Kenny Letter Lasso. Oh wait, no, other way around.
It's certifiably banana lines. And last up, James. Football's kind of winding down, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the off season, but there's just no games going on. What sport have you predominantly been focusing on with the NFL kind of on on their off-season pause?
Rugby is where I'm at so far. Yeah.
Really?
I'm just kidding. No, it's definitely hockey, man.
Oh wow.
Like I know enough about basketball to kind of get by with the NBA segments, but then hockey, I still don't know anything about it. So the more I watch, the more I learn.
Well,
so hockey it is.
I mean, when I do my segments, you're killing it. I'm glad. Is there a team that, besides the Ducks, is there a team that's kind of surprising you? One way or another?
You had the Oilers at like 6 or something super low in your rankings, and they're doing really well right now. So go Mike Smith. Yeah,
they were doing well until they faced the best in the division, and now they don't look that great. But we'll see if it changes. They're playing right now. So if you guys are watching on YouTube and I'm looking over to the left, it's because I'm trying to be invested in both projects here. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, James is going to take us through the AFC West roster needs. There's a lot of teams need, getting ready for the next season. And we're going to talk about what teams need what in the offseason. All right, ready? Stay tuned. And welcome back. James is going to take us through the AFC West roster needs. I think we're going to make it kind of a debate style. Is that how we're going to do it, James? Take it away.
Yeah, man, definitely. So like the last couple of times we've done offense versus defense, and then we kind of decided on one key thing or one player per position. We're going to do the same thing here. Every team has something to improve upon this offseason. No team is perfect. So we're going to kind of figure out what they need and how they're going to fill it. This week we're talking AFC West, not NFC. So we're gonna start with the Kansas City Chiefs, aka the first place losers. They were 14-2 this season. They lost in the Super Bowl to the Bucs. They had a super prolific passing attack in the NFL, and their defense was kind of middle of the pack. In the Super Bowl, they only had 1 sack on Tampa Bay, and that's not a way to win against an aging Brady. You got to sack that guy multiple times. On the season, they only had 32 sacks, which accounted for 22nd in the league for pass rushing. Not good at all. Traden, what do the Chiefs need to do to get to the Super Bowl again next season?
Yeah, I think that the Chiefs mainly need to focus on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I will say that their line was exposed in the Super Bowl, but I mean, we've seen this team in the to get to the Super Bowl. This team is going to just need to maintain their same offensive, high octane game. Like that's just how they roll. I guess defensively that they need to tighten up. Giving up 31 points to the Buccaneers in a Super Bowl and getting completely blown out, that can't happen. So I think it seems like your cornerbacks are going to be. I think quarterbacks are free agents, so that's going to be your kind of big push. I think you either need to sign them or find someone to fill that hole, because if your defense their defense was okay, but they clearly were exposed, and I think that needs to be the focus. And with cornerbacks and a few others like a safety as a free agent, those are your signings right there.
Do you have anybody in mind from those positions that you want to see go to the Chiefs? Keep in mind the Chiefs have negative cap room. They have negative $15 million in cap room right now.
Yeah,
so they got to find somebody who is cheap.
Well, maybe you're going into the draft. I mean, there's some first round targets that they could go after. I see there's a few cornerbacks on there that could be targeted, like J.C. Horn or Asante Samuel Jr. But if it's cheap, that's the way to go. Unless you could find some other guy who will just take a pay cut. I don't know.
So Traden's thinking secondary, and he's going to fix it by going to the draft. Eric, what do you think?
So it's like DraftKings almost. Like, all right, you just have this much money left. What are you going to get?
Pretty much. That's life too, by the way.
No, you got to compare everything to DraftKings from here on out. I think they need to tighten up their defense. I think D-line, they need a D-lineman. I was thinking exactly what you were saying. I didn't see Tom Brady really have much pressure that entire Super Bowl. They need that pass rushing D-lineman. One other thing they need is to not be so relaxed on the offensive side of the ball. I feel like all season they're losing games by like 20 points, and they have the first half, they start out super slow. And then, of course, Mahomes pulls his miraculous, crazy throws. And, they end up winning and beating the Dolphins like 28-21 or whatever. But we saw in the Super Bowl, like, that didn't happen. It took a toll on them. So they need a coach to yell at them to not be so relaxed on the offensive side of the ball. And they need – why are you looking at me like that, James? It's that simple. And then
you want to get rid of Andy Reid and get a new coach that yells at him.
No, they just need the coach to yell more. And then they need
Andy Reid might have a heart attack if he yells. That dude is heavy set, bro.
You need the offensive coordinator to yell, or somebody from up top. But they need a D lineman. I guess they got to be cheap, because you just said they're negative 1,500 cap room or whatever the fuck you just said. But
sounds like they're
negative 15 million.
They need a D lineman.
Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the cap space, they really don't have anything. So if they're going to add pieces, it's going to be through the draft, which their draft position isn't great either. I think they're 31st out of 32.
That's what I was runner up, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be it's going to be a difficult time finding pieces here. So they're going to have to find a diamond in the rough in free agency, or hopefully draft a guy in the first or second round that turns out to be a good guy for them. For me, I think they need some offensive line help. I mean, we saw how bad that Super Bowl was. I know they had some injuries and stuff, but clearly the offensive line depth is a concern with this team. If you had a few injuries and your offensive line was that poor. So I think going in the draft, picking up an offensive lineman in the first or second round, I think is probably one of their biggest needs.
I like that. That's different from defense because it's offense. Yeah. And Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, so I pretty much agree with Tyler, which is really annoying. But yeah, they need offensive line help. It looks like they could lose up to 3 of their offensive linemen in this offseason. They have 0 cap space. So that's what my pick was. But just another thing they have to think about is they're possibly losing Demarcus Robinson and Sammy Watkins from the wide receiving core. And obviously with Patrick Mahomes, you are a very pass-heavy offense. They're going to have to look for cheap wide receiver options. Luckily, probably wide receivers want to come play with Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. So that might be something they could do a little bit easier. But yeah, after the Super Bowl, they need offensive line help. They're going to have to do it in the draft because they have 0 money.
Exactly. Okay. So I went a different direction. I went more with Eric and Traden, and I said defense, but more specifically went pass rusher, as I alluded to in this little mini intro. They were not good at providing pressure against the quarterback. Frank Clark is good, but he's not great anymore. And with that negative cap space, they got to find somebody cheap. Who better than an ex-Pro Bowler than Melvin Ingram? This guy's coming off an injury-plagued season. He's going to be 32 years of age. He's still got some left in the tank. They're looking to sign him for 2 years and $10 million, which is not bad for an edge rusher. This is the dude who had 10.5 sacks 3 seasons ago and averages like 7.5 sacks per season. He's going to be good. And he's going to, as a veteran, that's the kind of player the Chiefs want. They don't need a young stud right now. They're just trying to win now. And if they can shell out some money and cut somebody else to make room for it, I'm all for it. I think Melvin Ingram is a really good choice for the Chiefs.
Here's a question for you, quick, James. 30 alluding to Tyler's point, 31st in the draft order. Do you pick to position or do you pick the best player available?
Best player available at 31, yeah.
Can they just
for sure?
Can they just trade somebody to get a D lineman or something? Like trade a few receivers away, trade Pringle, trade Robinson, get a D lineman.
He's a free agent. You can't trade a free agent.
Yeah, I guess you technically could, but I think wide receivers are surplus in the NFL right now.
It's true.
Yeah.
Every team has a decent amount of wide receivers, but not every team has an elite edge rusher.
Right.
And there you have it. So it's going to be tough. You're going to have to throw in something big and a couple of draft picks ahead.
I mean, do you think that the Chiefs are going to be as good as they were? I mean, they don't have much room to do much.
I think they are. To Tyler's point, their offensive line wasn't that good this season. And that was because a lot of the guys stepped away from COVID. Like one of their starting right guard is a doctor, like a legit medical doctor. And he went to Canada he took the season off, went to Canada and helped out for COVID reasons. I think that's pretty honorable. And like that was a big loss right off the edge right there. And then Eric Fish tears his Achilles. When you lose it, 2 starting offensive linemen, it's going to be pretty tough. That's going to be more help right then and there. So as a group, are we thinking offense or are we thinking defense? Which needs more help?
Offense.
Going back to Eric's offensive versus defense argument we had a couple weeks ago, I'm sticking with my offensive line pick.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did bring up a point. Patrick Mahomes ran away from pressure for over almost 500 yards in the Super Bowl. Offensive line needs to figure it out.
All right, so it's looking like the Chiefs need an offensive lineman, and they're doing that through the drafts, not Tyler.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to find a starting offensive lineman at 31. But hey, good luck to you.
It can happen.
Go Chiefs, go. Moving on to the second team of the division, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. They finished at 8-8. They were top 10 in terms of offense. That's crazy to think about. They were a top 10 team on the offensive side. But their defense was terrible. They allowed the third most points in the NFL, and I think they're ranked 30 out of 32. So not good at all. Eric, what is the biggest need for the Las Vegas Raiders, and how do they fix it?
Well, I wish you wouldn't have said that stat because I said better offense.
Oh, my God. Their offense is solid, bro.
They need a quarterback.
What?
A better quarterback.
Wow. You're out to lunch, my guy.
A 3-time Pro Bowler. They need a better quarterback than a 3-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah, because they've only made the playoffs with him once. Unfortunately, that year he broke his leg, like literally right before it. I just feel like he doesn't fit in well with that system. To me, they seem like an inconsistent offense. I feel like there were some games where they had a ton of points scored, like when they're beating the Jets, for example, who the Rams somehow didn't fucking beat last year. But their defense, yeah, I mean, they have a bad defense too, but I feel like every time I watched them play last year, they couldn't do dick with the ball. They were pretty inconsistent offensively. They had a few games they did well, but most of the time I didn't think they were that good on the offensive side because of their quarterback, and they need a better one.
They're the only team besides the Buccaneers to have beaten the Chiefs, and they beat them in the last 17 seconds of the game on the last drive. I'd say that's a pretty damn good
with that quarterback.
With that
was cool. That was good. One week of the season. They need to do that more weeks of the season.
Okay, so how do they get a better quarterback? Do they sign him or do they trade?
Trade him. Waive Derek Carr. Clear up some cap space. As long as they have a solid.
Looks like the Niners will be able to pick up Derek Carr, baby.
Derek Carr for.
Would you take that? I would.
Yeah, I would.
Derek Carr for Jimmy G. Give Jimmy G a fresh new start. Derek Carr.
I think Jimmy G is an upgrade over Derek Carr.
Yeah, he will be in the Raiders system.
I would say the Niners win that trade in a heartbeat.
Oh my God! All right, we're done with you, Tyler. You're up. What do you got?
I think some pass rush options for this Raiders team is going to be really good. So that for me, I think they can do it in free agency. Their draft position, is decent, but I think they can find some decent linebackers out there. Josh Bynes is one that comes to mind. So for me, I think that's where I think they'll probably spend most of their money will be on the defensive side.
Where's Josh Bynes from?
Off the top of my head, I do not know. I just know he's a free agent. I can fact check that.
We do the facts here, guys. Alex, who you got?
Yeah, they really need Khalil Mack. That's who they could use. Again, I agree with Tyler. They kind of need that guy. They need Khalil Mack. They need Aaron Donald. They need a Nick Bosa. They need a leader of that defense. They're not getting Nick Bosa. Calm down, James. They need a leader of that defense. Honestly, I did not, before we were talking about this, I was focusing all on the defense. I didn't even think about the offense. If you had told me they were a top 10 offense, I would have slapped you across the face. No way. So Eric,
look it up.
No, I know. I agree with you. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure it's true. I just wouldn't have believed it. They need defensive help. They also don't have a ton of cap space. But I do think they can do it through free agency. Are they going to get? Apparently, Josh Bynes is from Cincinnati. We just learned.
Thanks, Tyler.
Fact check,
baby. Yeah. So I agree with Tyler. They're going to need help on the defensive end. They're not going to have the cap space to go get a star, but just any amount that they can get would be helpful.
Trading.
So to Alex's point, they're another team that has negative cap space as of at least 2 weeks ago. I don't know if that's changed. But one way they can free that up is cutting Marcus Mariota. That's $11.3 million right off the books right there, especially because you have Derek Carr, Eric. You're fine. I agree with the others. I don't know how you fix. Here's the thing. I never was worried about the offense of the Raiders team. I always saw that they were scoring points. They just got outscored. Like that's just how it goes. They just didn't have the defense to beat teams. So I agree with Alex and Tyler on this one. I think that defense is the point of entry, is the point they need to fix. Linebacker KJ Wright stands out. That's an option. He's kind of inexpensive. This might be another team that has to do some draft work, but fix the defense. And I think that this team actually could be a team to beat.
There was one thing that Alex said that really stood out and resonated to me, and that's the Raiders need to find a leader on defense. And I think they're going to find that with Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman's a free agent this year, and both parties have said that they want to work something out. And it's really sad to say. I love Richard Sherman to death. I wish he would sign with the Niners. The Niners just can't do it. They don't have cap space. They can't cut anybody. But to your point, the Raiders can.
You think there's a link there?
They can cut.
You think there's a link there?
Oh, 100%. 100%. They've been talking back and forth.
He's already in the Bay. He doesn't even have to move.
Exactly. And people wait.
What? He's in Vegas.
Las Vegas.
I kind of forgot the Raiders were in Vegas. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, a little bit of tidbit. Hold on, timeout. I live very close to Irwindale. I did not know that the Raiders almost moved to Irwindale. Like they almost became the Irwindale Raiders. That's kind of a big
That'd
deal.
be so
Like
weird.
In my mind, the Raiders are still in Oakland.
Yeah, me too. I also almost made that mistake when I was doing this part. I was like, oh, he lives there already, but it doesn't make sense.
Irwindale Raiders.
You can keep it in if you want. I don't mind.
That's fantastic. Definitely keep it in. So I think the consensus is we're going defense because Eric is just wrong.
Great background though, bud.
The Raiders need defensive help. The Raiders need defensive help. Moving on to the Chargers. Los Angeles, right? Alex?
Yes.
Los Angeles Chargers.
Yes, I do know that one.
There you go.
Thank you, James.
7-9 last season. They were middle of the pack of offense and last third in defense. The thing is, they have great pieces on offense. They just got to put it all together. So, Tyler, what do they need to fix and how do they do it?
Yeah, I agree. You can say middle of the pack there. I do think that they can shore up the O-line a little bit. Maybe one other guy, one veteran leader on that O-line could help. But pass rush, defensive side, I think is where they'll, kind of focus a lot of their energy on. The good news is this team does have a good amount of cap space to spend some money, so they can go out and get a pass rusher. Draft order, they're kind of right in the middle, so maybe something will fall to them that they can pick up. So I think they'll do it kind of combination of draft, but like I said, they do have a lot of cap space, so I think they might go out and sign some free agents there, particularly on the defensive side.
Any names?
No.
Bosa.
It's just a free agent. All right. Yeah. You're killing it, Tyler. Good job. Alex, what you got?
Yeah, so the Chargers have their franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. He was amazing this year, with having an inconsistent offense. And he was an inconsistent player, but he's a rookie. We'll see better things from him in the future. They have a ton of cap space. They'll probably have money coming in. That's a new stadium they get to play in. Hopefully there's fans coming in, out of the possibility this upcoming season. They've got money. They need to protect their quarterback. So I'm saying they go offensive line, possibly Trent Williams from your Niners or center Alex Mack from the Falcons. I think they have the money to spend. You kind of want to give Justin Herbert big names. Those are big names. They're veteran players. The Chargers, they almost beat the Chiefs. They have a good team. They just need a little more consistency. I think that offensive line, protect Justin Herbert. He's got the legs to do the rest of it. Justin Herbert, protect him.
Love that. Great answer, in my opinion. Trade, we got.
Alex is bang on.
Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely.
Bang on. He's bang on.
It's bang on. The needs offensively is the offensive line. The rest of the offense is pretty solid. I mean, Justin Herbert is amazing, and it is amazing that he did tremendous under pressure. But as we've seen time and time again, it's not sustainable. It's just not. It just doesn't work that way, especially when you're looking to go far in the postseason. So you got to pick up. And by the way, they're losing two of their linemen to free agency who weren't even that fantastic either. And and Mike Pouncey's retiring, or he retired. So I think that's where you got to focus. I like Villanueva. I like that.
From the Steelers.
That's defense. I think though.
No, he's a left tackle.
So there's some options. I think you got to look at the draft. They do have $23.8 million of cap space, so they have a little bit of room to work with. Fix that offensive line, please.
Eric, are you gonna say safety? Is that their position?
No, he's gonna say quarterback.
No.
Who you got?
Chargers, keep doing what you're doing, but finish off your damn games from start to finish. Play all 4 quarters. Herbert has what it takes. He's shown us that he will dominate. Get Richard Sherman, get a leader on defense. That's going to help you finish and close out these games. Yes, they need O-linemen, but they need to fucking finish off these games. They need to win those 31-28 games that, they could have done it against the Chiefs last year. Maybe their kicker missed a few field goals, but they need a guy like Richard Sherman to just put them in check on defense.
That's a very interesting take. I agree with Alex and Tyler. Traden, not Tyler, Alex and Traden. Offensive line help, but I want to focus more on the center position. I think they should sign Corey Lindsey from Green Bay. Center is the key to an offensive line. Green Bay had a good offensive line, and he was the key to it. You got to make the calls. You got to make the blocks. Corey Lindsey did fantastic. The old center, Dan Feeney, the dude allowed 4 sacks and 33 pressures on the QB all season long. Those are terrible numbers. He's probably the worst center this league has to offer. So, yeah, go sign Corey Lindsey.
Oh, and by the way, Justin Herbert still did what he did. Can you imagine if he had protection? Yeah. Like, I'd watch out.
That's what I'm saying, man. Justin Herbert is going to be a threat to this league.
Yeah.
If he gets offensive.
Watch out Mahomes, because I think I'm not saying he's good at Mahomes, but I think that team has a legit opportunity to compete for that top spot.
Well, no, because
I think his comp right now is actually Josh Allen.
Obviously.
Right, Tyler?
Yep, Hurts, baby. He's coming.
Oh, my God. Last but not least, we're going to go to the bottom feed of this division. That's Denver Broncos. They're 5-11. They were bad on offense. They were bad on defense. Just bad all the way around. They were hit hard by injuries. Still doesn't really exempt them from all this. Alex, how do they fix it? What do they need to fix, and how do they fix it?
Yeah, I was kind of big on the Broncos at the beginning of the season. I thought Drew Lock was, kind of a sleeper. He was terrible. So I'm actually gonna go QB this time. I still think Drew Lock is still going to be the starter for now, but I like the idea of them getting a veteran to play as a backup, just to kind of help move him along in the process of developing. Unfortunately, there's not like a ton of really good veteran quarterbacks on the free agency list right now. They do have some cap space. I kind of thought Cam Newton for a second, but I changed my mind on that. I didn't like that idea. It could kind of work, but I'm not feeling it. But maybe somebody like Jacoby Brissett, he could kind of be a guy who's, he's shown that he can be good in this league. He's maybe not a game changer. They're not going to drop a bunch of money on him, but enough to like have a veteran presence. And they need Von Miller back. He's the face of the franchise. I mean, I know that's not that's an injury related thing, but yeah,
I like it.
The Broncos suck.
The Broncos are bad. Trading we got.
Look, it's tough. I think that I don't think Drew Lock is incredible by any means. I don't think he's that great, but I don't think that you need to be trading for a quarter. I mean, the only way you can really get a quarterback that's actually worth it is by getting I would say a superstar, and then maybe Deshaun. Unless you can get Deshaun Watson, I don't think it's worth it. I think there are other holes you need to fix, especially when you have only one cornerback that's left on the roster due to the others being released or going to free agency. So I think that's what you need to fix. Defensively, this team needs to improve. I know that the offense is not great either, so it's really tough. This one might be the biggest bit of contention for this group, but I'm gonna stick on the defensive side. I'm looking maybe at Troy Hill. Maybe.
Oh, okay. Taking it from the Rams. I like it. Eric, how do you feel about that?
We're not going to give him to the Broncos, Traden, and I think they're like the Raiders.
He's a free agent, bud.
Sounded so Canadian.
So if you just give him enough money, he's gonna go anyway.
I think they're just like the Raiders, but even worse on offense. And their quarterback is kind of like the Raiders quarterback, but even worse.
Oh my God.
So they need a quarterback. Maybe they get a guy like Mariota or like trade for Sam Darnold or something like that. Give Sam Darnold a new change of scenery away from that terrible organization of the Jets. Get him over to Denver, change it up, get him in with who's their running back? What's that guy's name? The Chargers had him.
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. Get Sam Darnold and Melvin Gordon together. Maybe you actually have a chance on offense all of a sudden. You got a quarterback that knows what he's doing. Who knows?
Okay, interesting. Tyler?
Yeah, this is a confusing one to kind of dissect and really pick one particular one they really need. I kind of get the sense they're going to give Drew Lock one more year to kind of prove himself. So I don't think they're really going to go for a quarterback. As I kind of agree with Traden on, I'm kind of more on the cornerback side of things. They're losing a few. They're going to get Von Miller back, hopefully. So hopefully that defense will get better. Add a free agent cornerback, maybe Richard Sherman. We mentioned him earlier, or a Shaquille Griffin, maybe. There's a few, free agent cornerbacks out there. They have some cap space to fill it. For me, the Broncos, as how terrible they are, they do have a decent running game. So I think offensively, like, they're not as far away as I think defensively they could use more help. So if I was the Broncos, I lean more on the defensive side.
I think Drew Lock is done. Drew Lock is just not it. They're going to go to the draft. They're going to pick Justin Fields up. He's going to slip to number 9 because people are not going to like the fact that he runs. Okay? So that's what's going to happen.
Wow.
They're going to pick up Justin Fields. That's what's going to go.
Wow. That's bold, man.
That's a drops to number 9.
Wow.
We know.
Yeah.
Like something I would see, James.
This better be on the TikTok or whatever. You need to clip that because that's bold, man.
It's so bold that James just leaves the podcast and he's back.
Yeah. That was his mic drop, guys. He just mic dropped.
Justin Fields is going to fall to number 9. He's going to go to the Broncos. That's what's going to happen.
That would be incredible.
Hold on to that. See what happens.
Yeah, I can't wait to see if that turns out because that would be epic.
You heard it.
We'll go over the draft later, but that's my segment.
Love it. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I learned a lot from you guys, and we have cool different perspectives. We look at things a little bit differently. Unless you're Eric, who says that the Raiders need a new QB, we all have good perspectives, and I think that's awesome.
Wait until this season, Traden.
Okay. I'll wait. But when we come back, we're going to take a little break. But when we come back, Tyler's going to take us through the MLB, the NL East. 3, 2, 1. And we're back. Tyler's going to take us through another preview for the MLB. I think we got the NL West or East.
East? I thought you said West.
Take us away.
Yeah, no.
That was not scripted at all.
Yeah, not at all. The National League East. So we're shifting over to the National League side of things here. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the reigning NL East champions, the Atlanta Braves. In 2020, they won the East Division with a 35-25 record and lost in 7 games in the NLCS to the eventual World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. In the offseason, they re-signed Marcell Ozuna. They signed starting pitcher Charlie Morton and starting pitcher Drew Smyly. Their projected rotation will be as follows: Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Mike Soroka, who's coming back from an Achilles injury, Ian Anderson, and Drew Smyly. Their projected lineup: catcher Travis d'Arnaud, first baseman the NL MVP Freddie Freeman, second baseman Ozzie Albies, shortstop Dansby Swanson, third baseman Austin Riley. Outfielders are Ronald Acuna Jr., Marcell Ozuna, and Christian Pache. The bad with this team, questions in the bullpen. Will Smith will now be their closer. It looks like Mark Melanson will leave with free agency. And then production from guys like Chris Martin, AJ Minter, and Tyler Matzik. These are guys that, have had some success recently. We'll see if they can, continue that. But kind of the depth of that bullpen is a little bit of a concern. The good, they brought back pretty much the exact same lineup as last season. So they pretty much got the same core group of guys in that lineup, 1 through 8 there. And they added starting pitching depth, which is going to be huge for them. They added Charlie Morton and they added Drew Smyly. So I think this team, starting pitching wise, is better than they were last year. So James, I wanted to ask you about these Atlanta Braves. One thing that surprised me is a lot of computer projections don't have this Braves team even making the postseason, which to me is a surprise. But I want to ask you, do you agree or disagree with those projections, and why?
I absolutely disagree with those projections. Like, how does a computer think that this Braves team that is pretty much just as good as it was last year doesn't make it to the playoffs? It's just relying on analytics too much once again, and that's going to be the detriment, just like the Tampa Bay Rays. I think they're going to finish first in the division. And the fact of the matter is, Freddie Freeman came into the season and wasn't 100%. The dude was still feeling coronavirus and was still suffering from that and struggling to breathe, and he still ended up being the MVP. Because the thing about him might be even better this year. And that supporting cast is just as good as last year. They did add a lot of starting pitching, and you said that their one kind of downfall was their closer position or their bullpen. But with an offense that is as good as they are and the starting pitching that is as good as it already is, by the time they reach like innings 7, 8, 9, they should have like a 5-run lead. So should the closers really be that important at that point? I think closers are more important for the teams that are just neck and neck and struggling. And the fact of the matter is, last year it was a COVID season, so pretty much everybody was, hanging out with their team and just their team. That builds a lot of continuity and character within the team itself and a lot of good chemistry. Because this team is pretty much the same team as last year, they're that much closer. And you see it with positive team chemistry, and when teams trust each other and know each other, they perform better. And that's exactly what I think the Braves are going to do. Like I said at the beginning, I think the Braves are going to be first in the division.
I agree 100%. My jaw dropped when I saw those computer projections. I mean, they had them finishing fourth in the division, which is absolutely ridiculous.
That's messed up.
I don't know what's going on with that. But again, it is a computer, and it's not, human beings making these projections. And most, human projections have this Braves team winning the division or making the playoffs for sure. I agree with you. I mean, this Braves team, I think they're better than they were last year. I mean, yeah, that bullpen is a little bit of a concern. I think that may or may not be their downfall in the postseason, but this team is going to be great. I mean, they're going to be one of the best teams in the National League, so I don't see any reason why they won't make the playoffs again this year. Moving on to the surprise second place finishers in 2020, the Miami Marlins. They finished second with a 31-29 record, and they even won a playoff series. Eventually, they lost in the NLDS to the Atlanta Braves. In the offseason, they hired the first female general manager in baseball history, Kim Ng. They also added some bullpen help with Anthony Bass and Dylan Floro, and they also picked up Starling Marte's club option for 2021. Their projected rotation will be as follows: Sixto Sanchez, Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Eliezer Hernandez, and Trevor Rogers. Their projected lineup: catcher Jorge Alfaro, first baseman Garrett Cooper, second baseman Jazz Chisholm, shortstop Miguel Rojas, third baseman Brian Anderson, and the outfielders Corey Dickerson, Starling Marte, and Adam Duvall. The bad with this team is their overall depth is lacking, especially offensively. The good, they have the great 1, 2, 3 starting pitching. They're young, they're talented. And I think this team overall has a pretty bright future going forward. I just think right now they're still going to be in that rebuild mode. But Traden, first of all, I want to get your thoughts on the hiring of Kim Ng. Pretty significant moment in history. Yeah. And then secondly, this team was a surprise last year. Do you see them surprising again this in 2021?
Yeah, no. To tackle the first one, I think it's a huge milestone, and Kim Ng completely busted through the glass ceiling, being the first woman to be a GM in any of the 4 sports, as far as from what I know. And I think that's huge. And the important thing about that is, if you look at, this isn't just a signing to appease to appease one side of the fence. She is tenured. She knows her stuff. She's been with the Dodgers. She's been with, I can't remember where she was before, but it's 30 years of experience in this. It's about time that she was given the nod. She's tried, I believe, 5 times and just couldn't, or been interviewed 5 times, and she hasn't been able to land that job. And she's finally given the opportunity. I believe she was also a top level executive for the MLB as a whole. So she knows baseball. I mean, come on. I don't care if you're a female or male. If you have this kind of career, resume, it speaks for itself. Oh, and by the way, she is the first to take that spot. So I think that's huge. And I think she's finally given an opportunity that she's deserved for a while now. And it's a huge stepping stone for women in executive roles, and Asian Americans as well. Asian American women as well. To tackle the second one, look, I think it was. I'm not going to say that it was a fluke that they made it to the NLDS, but I think that they were gifted with a shortened season. I just think that they were one of the ones that benefited from that. I don't think that they didn't make any major offseason moves, which means that they're still committed to the rebuild. They didn't take that, oh, we made it to the NLDS, let's go for it. They're focusing on making sure that the team is growing and developing the way it should. with a full season, a full 162 games, I don't think that you're going to see any major surprises. You may see them. You may actually see some value of the Marlins from Sanchez. He did have a pretty good rookie season, a great rookie season. And I think that if he keeps that up, there's going to be actual value and there's going to be actual stepping stones saying, hey, the Marlins are actually moving in the direction that they need to be. But I don't think that they're going to surprise. There's no way they're contenders in my eye.
I agree. I think one of my favorite moments of this podcast so far is when we did the season preview for 2020. I joked and said about the short season, like you never know what team will make it. And I was like, even the Marlins could do it, obviously joking because the Marlins were horrible and they made the playoffs and they even won a series. So it, made me eat my words there. But yeah, I agree. I'm going to say it again. And I'm pretty confident on this one. They will not make the playoffs in 2021. It's a longer season, a longer grind.
Watch them make the playoffs again, dude.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable if they did.
It's tough. There's not an expanded. They kind of got help with the expanded playoff avenue anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I just don't think it's going to
happen. I think it's very unrealistic. But this team, I think we're going to see them get better and better. But they're still a few years away from being serious contenders, I think. Moving on to the third place finishers, the Philadelphia Phillies. In 2020, they finished in third place with a 28-32 record. In the offseason, they hired Dave Dombrowski as their president of baseball operations. They re-signed JT Realmuto, re-signed Didi Gregorius, and signed relief pitcher Archie Bradley. Their projected rotation will be Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Zach Eflin, Spencer Howard, and Vince Velasquez. Their projected lineup: catcher JT Realmuto, first baseman Rhys Hoskins, second baseman Gene Segura, shortstop Didi Gregorius, third baseman Alec Baum, outfielders Andrew McCutchen, Bryce Harper, and Roman Quinn. The bad with this team, the depth on the pitching side, both on the starting pitching and in the bullpen, is a concern. They had one of the worst bullpens in the league last year, which I think was addressed a little bit, but we'll see what happens. And there's inconsistency up and down that lineup. I think is a concern. Bryce Harper is obviously one of the biggest stars in this league, but kind of everyone else in there, and JT Realmuto I think is very, very good. But kind of the rest of that lineup is just, you never know what you're going to get any given day. The good is that they do have some championship level talent. I mean, Aaron Nola is one of the best starting pitchers. You have Bryce Harper is one of the best position players. JT Realmuto is an all-star every season, it seems like. They're very close to being contenders. I think they need a few more pieces to make it happen. Dave Dombrowski, I think, was a big hire for this team. He's won 2 World Series, both with the Marlins and with the Red Sox. So he knows what he's doing when he's trying to build a championship team. I think they got a lot of pieces in place here to be, contenders very soon. They might surprise this season. They might sneak up there as a wild card spot. I'm like a fringe wild card possibly, but they're going to have to prove themselves here. They got a lot of guys that need to step up. I think they're one of the teams that I think went through this rebuild and it didn't quite work out the way they want, and so they need to have some success, or this team can blow up real soon, real quick. Moving on to the fourth place finishers in 2020, the New York Mets finished with a 26-34 record. The offseason, they got a new team owner, Steve Cohen, who's made quite a few changes. The biggest one was trading for shortstop Francisco Lindor and starting pitcher Carlos Carrasco. They also signed catcher James McCann and signed relief pitcher Trevor May. Their projected rotation will be Jacob deGrom, Carlos Carrasco, Marcus Stroman, Taijuan Walker, Joey Lucchesi, and then Noah Syndergaard will also come back at some point this season from Tommy John surgery. Projected lineup: catcher James McCann, first baseman Pete Alonso, second baseman Jeff McNeil, shortstop Francisco Lindor, third baseman J.D. Davis. Outfielders are Brandon Nimmo, Dominic Smith, and Michael Conforto. The back end of this rotation is a little bit questionable to me. Obviously, you got Jacob deGrom, who's one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in baseball right now. Carlos Carrasco is a great option. Marcus Stroman's pretty solid. Taijuan Walker, Joey Lucchesi, don't know what you're going to get out of those guys, and we'll see how Syndergaard comes back from surgery. The good, Very good lineup. I mean, you got Lindor to add to that great lineup. This will be one of the best lineups in the league, I believe. And as I mentioned before, they have the best starting pitcher in baseball in Jacob deGrom. This team will be very, very, very good, very competitive in 2021. A lot of people have them as odds-on favorites to win the National League East. Eric, are you all aboard the Mets wagon? And do you think that they're favorites to win this division?
Yeah, you actually took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say all aboard, join the wagon. Last year, they led the NL in batting average, ranked second in on-base percentage, and now you throw in what every team needs, good pitchers. They already have DeGrom. They got Syndergaard. They added Caruso. What the fuck was his name?
Carrasco.
You just said? Carrasco. But so they have what it takes on the hitting side of the ball, but they have pitchers too. It's pretty simple. You get both of those, you got a chance to win every night. We're back to that long baseball season. I think the Mets are going to be built to handle that long baseball season, and there's a good chance that they do win this division. I think it's going to come down and be a battle to the finish, but I have a feeling that they could pull it off and win this division.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I have a difficult time of kind of giving teams an up when I haven't really seen how they performed yet, especially when they have some new pieces and they haven't really proven in the past that they can be successful. So I'm still not going to have the Mets as my favorites to win this division, but they are going to be very, very good, and we'll see kind of how things go. Also, I think we need to start making a tally every time every one of us mispronounces a name, and whoever has like the most mispronounced names at the end of the month has to like do something funny.
I think so far you're winning.
Probably.
I can name two you've already mispronounced in this segment alone.
There you go. See, so we should start doing it. Just hold.
Also, I had no idea that Alex Caruso also played baseball. That's crazy.
Yeah. See, there you go.
He just takes his headband off, puts on a hat, plays baseball.
Yeah. All of a sudden, he's a D1 pitcher.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You never know. All right, moving on to the last place finishers in 2020, the Washington Nationals. They finished with a record of 26-34. In the offseason, they signed starting pitcher John Lester, signed relief pitcher Brad Hand, signed outfielder Kyle Schwarber, and traded for first baseman Josh Bell. Their projected rotation, Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, John Lester, and Joe Ross. Their projected lineup, catcher Yan Gomes, first baseman Josh Bell, second baseman Starlin Castro, shortstop Trey Turner, third baseman Carter Kieboom, outfielder Juan Soto, Kyle Schwarber, and Victor Robles. The bad for this team, the bullpen. There's not a whole lot there. That's going to be a huge area of concern for them. Their pitching, I would say, on the starting end, it's more their health / performance that's a concern. Steven Strasburg, if he's healthy, is one of the best pitchers in baseball. Scherzer had a little bit of a weird season this year. And him and Corbin, are they starting to decline a little bit with their age, or how's that going to work out for them? The great lineup as usual. Juan Soto is a legit star in this league. I would say a top 5 talent. Trey Turner is also, a great talent there. So they got a lot of, good sticks in that lineup. And they still have a chance to compete. I think they still have a window here to compete for a championship. So I think a lot of people have kind of the Mets and the Braves, I think, is the kind of the two teams to fight for this division. But Alex, I want to ask you about this Nationals team. Do you think the Nationals belong in the conversation for NL East contenders? Why or why not?
Okay, so before I answer that Braves outfielder, his name is Christian Pache. And then the Mets starting pitcher, his name is Joey Lucchesi. That's how you say their names. Follow us on TLDR podcast.
Boom.
Major League Baseball players. Going back to the Nats thing. They are a team it's going to be complete feast or famine based off of injuries. They could be a worst to first team. If they are completely healthy and all of their guys perform at peak level, they could win this division. If they're hurt, if that starting pitching does not go well, they could end up in the basement. They are a wild team to try to predict right now. I mean, if Max Scherzer had a lot of issues last year, I think Steven Strasburg made a start last year. Patrick Corbin was awful. But if you think about 2 years ago, that big three led them to a world championship. So if those three are healthy and if they are performing at the level that they can win this division. Do I think they're going to do that? No. Scherzer's 37. Strasburg has had a lot of injury history. Patrick Corbin has a very up and down career. I don't think the depth in their pitching, and especially the bullpen, like you mentioned, can propel them to a division victory in what I think is the toughest division in baseball this season. When you go through that lineup, though, that's a lot of good pieces. Josh Bell had an amazing year 2 years ago, and he kind of shit the bed last year. Kyle Schwarber, he's never going to hit 300, but he could hit 40 bombs. Trey Turner's an all-star talent. Juan Soto will win an MVP before it's all said and done. They've got a lot of veteran leadership. John Lester, Ryan Zimmerman. Those are guys that have been through it all. I do think the Nats are going to have a much better season than they did last year. I mean, think about it. In 2019, what did they start? 19 and 30 something, and then they won the World Series. They're kind of like the Blues of a couple years ago. Same thing. The Nats are easily the toughest team to look at in this division. I think they could win it. I don't think they will.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I do think they will be much better, but yeah, there's just a lot of question marks in this team, and it's kind of a tricky team, like you said, to kind of hone down and see what they're going to do. So we'll see what happens. But this NL East team, or this NL East division is, as you mentioned, I think one of the deepest divisions in baseball, if not the most competitive. There's realistically 4 teams in this division I think have a shot at winning it. So let's go around the horn here at the end and go through everyone's predictions. I'll start off with mine. So I have the Braves winning this division with 95 wins. The Mets will be in second with 93. Then I got the Nationals 88 wins, the Phillies at 87 wins, and the Marlins at 70 wins. Trade-in, let's hear yours.
I got Mets, Braves, Nationals, Phillies, and my Marlins.
Gotcha. Eric, what do you got?
Mets, Braves, Nationals, Marlins, Phillies.
Wow. Alex.
Braves. Fuck it. Nats, Mets. I'm not sold on the Mets. Phillies, Marlins, but I think they could all be within 15 games of each other.
Yeah, give me real tight. And then James.
Braves, Mets, Nationals, Marlins, and Phillies.
Damn. So a few Phillies haters here. I like it. So that's all I got for the NL East division. I'll take a break because I'll be hosting next week, but then we'll get into the NL Central, the NL West, and then opening day will be pretty much right around the corner by that time. So we're getting into the thick of things here for baseball. So trading, that's all I got.
Love it. What do we have? 2 more divisions remaining?
Yep.
Awesome. I look forward to that. These are always good I'm learning a lot from these divisional previews. So we appreciate that, Tyler. We're going to take a quick break. You're going to hear from our sponsor. And when we come back, Eric's going to take us through a discussion around player roles and give some recognition to some roles on teams that otherwise we kind of overlook. Stay tuned. And we're back. Eric's going to take us through another great discussion around player roles. And, we in all the sports that we cover, there's many different players other than just the superstars that we tend to kind of focus on. So I think Eric wanted to kind of give some recognition to some player roles and kind of get a good discussion over the other side of some teams, as well as, which sports kind of focus on their superstars over others. So Eric, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, call it discussion, debate, argument, agreement. We're going to do all of that right now, right here. So first off, just to start it, I'm thinking which sports are superstars most important and focused on? In my eyes, it's got to be NBA. I believe they're the highest paid athletes in the world. It goes to show that
in North America anyway. Maybe.
Yeah. In places that aren't Canada, I guess Toronto Raptors though. But going on the opposite side, like which sport is that situation completely the opposite? I would say hockey, most likely. We were kind of talking about this like in the beginning of the podcast. Alex, you're our NBA guy. Why do you think like these NBA superstars, they get the most attention, the most money? Like, why do you think our world is like that?
I mean, it's kind of just a numbers game if you really think about it. There's only 5 guys on the court at the same time. All the other 3 professional sports, baseball's 9, football's 12, hockey's, I guess, is technically also 5, but they switch off so much more frequently than basketball players. I mean, I guess there's 6 including the goalie, but for hockey. But I mean, if you just look at recent NBA history, I mean, if you look at someone like LeBron James, I mean, he took some Cleveland Cavaliers teams who, other than himself, had just, I would say, mediocre to average players at best, especially after Kyrie left. And he took them all the way to the NBA Finals. And then you look at baseball, the best player on the planet has been to the playoffs one time, and that's Mike Trout. And he's had mediocre to average players on his team the entire time. So, yeah, they make a crap ton of money. We talked about it last week on the podcast, is the NBA also markets their players better than any other sport out there. I mean, LeBron James, I just saw something about it. He's, the most popular professional athlete in the United States. In the world, he's number 7, and everyone else is a soccer player. And then there's one cricket guy because there's a bajillion people in India. I know, it's crazy. I didn't know who the guy was, but yeah, in the NBA, if you don't have a superstar, you will not win the championship. It comes down to that. You have to have one of the top guys or you're not going to win. And in the other sports, I think that's very debatable.
Yeah, that's a great look on it, actually. I threw kind of just like a quick, deep question at you. That was a great answer. I didn't even think about that. Just like the least amount of guys on the court. But yeah, you look at these NBA markets, we talk about it too, like certain markets drive certain players, and that, makes the league go around. That brings a lot of money to the league. Therefore, it brings more money to these superstars, and they are that important for your team's success. James, I mean, where would you say you're our football guy? Like, where is football in this category? There is like high paid athletes. There's also guys I feel like that are underpaid in that sport, that are like, either upcoming superstars, and be like a guy like Justin Herbert or something, or that D lineman on the Chase Young on the Redskins football team. There's guys like that are underpaid but on their way to becoming superstars. Like, how important is that to the NFL?
So you can have a really good talent come out of the draft, and they're forced to sign a contract that's laid out by the players union in the NFL. They have no say in how much they get the first 3 to 5 years coming out of the draft. So yeah, every single one of those rookies are going to be underpaid if they're going to be good. If they produce mildly to expectation, they're going to be underpaid. And it helps a bunch. Teams are shelling out to get big name guys, and then they cut some veterans to make room for rookies. And you see it with the Niners that happened last season. One of the best defensive linemen on their team, one of the best defensive linemen in the league, DeForest Buckner, was traded to the Colts, to cut cost, and then they drafted a rookie defensive lineman who was raw and was supposed to be full of talent. And he is. He's got some like a way to go, but he costs $100 million less than DeForest Buckner does. So having rookies on rookie contracts is what makes this league go round.
Yeah, that is a trend in the NFL. And, I feel like a lot of, contracts in the NFL are a little shorter too. You get a guy like a 2-year contract. It's almost like he's got to prove himself. They're testing the waters with him. So trading, we talked hockey, probably the opposite. We're like, there's superstars, your McDavids, your Austin Matthews. But, these guys don't make as much money. And sometimes, like, look at the Leafs. They had, like, the highest paid line last year, and they lost in the playoffs first series like they have in the last, like, 4 or 5 years. What is to say about this in the hockey world?
Yeah, it's a little bit different it's a lot different than the NBA. The game's just different. You hear about it every time free agency or a team's looking to rebuild or a team's looking to contend. And the reality is your top six is extremely important, and the top six forwards are your first two lines. They're going to be compared against everyone else in the league. If you look at, you look at a team like the Avalanche, they probably have one of the best, top six players in the league, just based on all around that depth up there. But really, when it comes down to it, is if your team can sign and play hockey players at the NHL level. I mean, the NHL level is completely different than the AHL level, which is the league just below. And that is quite a huge stepping stone. And so you hear it all the time that you're looking for players, you're looking for NHL caliber players, because it doesn't matter if you have a Connor McDavid, and I can attest to that. We signed him, or I'm sorry, we drafted him in 2015, and he's seen the postseason once, very similar to a Mike Trout situation. And just now they're starting to get that depth and that ability to actually perform. So you clearly, as much as the player can take over a game, and Connor McDavid has, and Austin Matthews has, you need NHL caliber players in the depths of your roster to compete. That's just how it goes. If you're wanting to succeed. Case in point, look at our talks about the Tampa Bay Lightning this past postseason. They are the deepest team in the league. No, they have Kucherov, who's one of the best players on the planet as well. But below that, they don't have a Leon Draisaitl, but they have so much depth throughout the lineup that, even a fourth liner probably would be cracking a third line on any other team. That says a lot about the team like that. And that's just how you perform. That's just how you perform as a team. You have to play to a hard cap, and that makes it tougher. And it's just a different dynamic than the NBA.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was just thinking about the Lightning as you're talking about this, because at the deadline last year, they got this Barclay Goodrow, like a fourth liner from the Sharks,
love that
guy. He ended up being super important to them, scoring like dirty grind goals in those important games against the Stars in the Cup final. They signed Shattenkirk, who's now on the Ducks, unfortunately. But, he was another guy that became like a glue guy for them. He was like one of those, 3 out of the 4 main defensemen that played well for them. They got some other dude from the Devils his name is slipping me, but another fourth liner that was just putting in work for them. Gets me into the next question, Tyler. Like in baseball, you got the designated hitters on one side of the league, but we were talking basketball earlier. Like you get your superstars; they're playing every night. Usually, it's not like unless they're load managing, but you got your guys playing every night in football and basketball. But baseball, like you're rotating pitchers, like not everyone's going to play every night. Your designated hitters, your pitchers, like how are they valuable to the team? Like, because you have your superstar pitchers, but you also have like these other like kind of no-name pitchers that we were talking about with the NL East earlier. Like how do these roles play in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, and I think most people agree, I think pitching is the most important position in baseball. You got to have pitching. You got to have a lot of it because, as you mentioned, you're rotating guys every night. Their starting pitchers are pitching every 5th day. So you got to have, 1 through 5 be pretty solid for you to win all those games. Like, yeah, obviously, your position players that are in there every night are also important, but the starting pitching is what's going to drive the momentum of that team most of the time. If your pitcher's up there throwing up zeros, that's going to help a team because he's doing that consistently every inning, that same guy, and if you can have a guy that goes out there who has a sub 2 or 2 ERA, it's and the confidence that gives a team that this is your guy, he's going to go out there and he's going to shut down that other team. It just gives your team so much confidence. And there's a reason why pitchers are the highest paid players in baseball, even though they don't play every day, which is kind of a crazy thing for a lot of people to grasp. But that's just kind of the way it is, because they are that important. And when they are playing, they're doing most of the work. So pitching is kind of an interesting position. It's hard to compare it to anything else. It's very unique. But it is, I think pitching is very, very important. As much as it is for your ace, your number 1 guy, as it is for even your number 6 guy, the guy that has to fill in for guys that get hurt. It's very, very important to have a pitching depth is I would say an essential part of a championship team.
Oh yeah, would definitely agree with you on that. I kind of want to wrap it up now. If you guys are able to think of these like glue guys, is what I like to call them, in like each sport that stand out to you. For me, basketball world, I'd say, like, no bias here, Lou Williams, big glue guy, big bench guy. Montrezl Harrell, for sure, big glue bench guy. Like the NBA, you hear a lot about the bench players. They're like just as important as the superstars, because while the superstars are resting, they are the ones gathering all the points, hopefully keeping the other team off the scoreboard. In the hockey world, I think of like Lucic. You know, I always bring this guy up. Trade and disagree. Like a Lucic once was a good glue guy, like in his Bruin era. You know, getting the grimy goals, fighting, protecting the main players. That was in an older world of hockey. Football, I'm trying to think here on the spot, football wise. I might have to come back around. But James, who do you got in the basketball world, hockey world, football world? Who do you got as a glue guy that sticks out to you?
There isn't one particular person or like athlete who is a glue guy. I'm just going to go with offensive and defensive linemen. Like a nose tackle on the defense, they don't get any recognition whatsoever, yet they're still getting the job done. And you don't ever hear about any offensive linemen unless they're doing terribly. So if you don't ever hear about them, they're doing a good job. They're glue guys. Yeah. They make your team work.
That's true. I don't really know many offensive linemen in the NFL, and I should just like learn all their names and quiz you on it, see if you actually know them. But yeah, you're right. Those are big glue guys in the NFL world. Tyler, baseball wise, who are some glue guys? I mean, what position would you call a glue guy? Would you call it like a backup pitcher, like a closer, or what? Like, what are we talking here?
Call that you're
catchers.
Yeah, you're a utility guy who's kind of a player on your team that can play multiple positions if needed. So for me, the most recent guy that comes to mind is Kiki Hernandez. Was on the Dodgers for a long, long time, now with the Boston Red Sox. But I mean, that guy, he played every position except for catcher. So that is a super utility guy, a guy that can play anywhere. I think every team needs at least one of those guys. And he's a guy, I mean, he played a lot of positions, but he was in the lineup almost every night because he was giving guys days off, or, you know, guys were hurt. So he was just a guy that was constantly being rotated in wherever he needed. And that's not an easy thing to do. You know, a lot of baseball guys specialize in a certain position and look lost if they're anywhere else on the field. But, you know, Kiki Hernandez is, I think, probably the ultimate, you know, super utility guy who not only is good defensively, but is pretty solid on the offensive side too. So I think baseball-wise, Kiki Hernandez. And also hockey, I want to just mention one name, Trevor Lewis, LA King.
Oh, yeah.
That guy was one of my favorite kind of under-the-radar players there for the LA Kings for a lot of years.
Super glue guy.
Yeah.
Alex, NBA-wise, anyone that sticks out to you, role players? You could say baseball, whatever sports are on your mind.
Yeah, I like the guys that you picked with Lou Will and Harrell, but I'm going to go back. I don't believe he's in the league anymore, but Jamal Crawford, another Clippers guy, pretty much whoever's going to win sixth man of the year, that's the guy you want on your team. And, you know, and just like I personally think with the NBA compared to the other three major sports, those role guys, you need them less often than the other ones. I mean, we talked about there's less guys on the court at the same time, but the roster, like the active rosters, are also tiny compared to the other. I mean, it's 12 guys where football's 53, right, James?
Yeah.
53. So like it's kind of not comparable. But yeah, any guy in an NBA squad that gives you bench scoring or bench elite defense, that's the kind of grinder guy that you want on your team.
Yeah. Schroeder, I would say Schroeder too, who's now on the Lakers. Like, I thought he was going to get that six-man award last year when he was on OKC. Traden, Did you say some hockey guys already? I can't.
No, I haven't. I would say a Pat Maroon.
Yeah,
that's a good pick.
The way he just the way he commands the ice when he's there, he battles like hell. And then most recently, I gotta tip my hat to Alex Killorn of the he played it with Tampa Bay. Those are the players that make a difference. You can inject them into the first line if you need some toughness, some truculence. You could put them down below, and they'll still score some goals, and they'll get in the dirty areas. And if they're playing well enough, they can actually play against the best on the ice and give your guys a chance to play against the weaker lines as well, giving your high octane offense the chance to win games. I mean, that's what the players are about. So I'm going to give Alex Killorn and Pat Maroon a huge tip of my hat on that one.
So really, you're like a Lightning fan, basically, is what you're saying.
Basically, well, look, guys. I mean, look what they did. They dominated all the way down the lineup, and that's what they do. And these guys aren't paid a lot. These guys are getting paid $1 million a year, and that's low. And these guys are like 30 some years old. They're veterans, and they're getting paid that. That's the type of players you need. And if you surround yourself with that on the bottom of your roster, your top guys should just be able to win those tough built games as long as you're keeping the puck out of your own net when you're on the ice.
Last thing I would say, if we were a team, I'd say Alex and James would be our superstars. Probably me, Trade, and Tyler, the glue guys.
James, we're making the big bucks, baby.
Wow.
Love it, dude.
Maybe me and Tyler switch off being team manager. Who knows? But,
What sport are we playing?
Beer mile.
Oh, well, yeah.
Boxing,
got
right?
it. Got
Yeah,
it.
that's not going to go well with me.
Love it.
I can't
Yeah,
run.
that's all I got this week.
Love it, Eric. Those discussions are always great. I think that was just another one. Love those debates. When we come back, we're going to have our final segment of the week. Alex is going to take us through another set of NBA topics to talk about. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back, Alex. You're going to take us through another week of topics regarding the NBA. Take it away.
Yeah. So as always, before we get into it, we got to do a little update on the fantasy. I did win this week, so I'm 8-2. Tyler had a big win to get back to 5-5. That's he's at 500, and then James just shit all over Traden. Just opened up his sphincter and just a whole bunch of poo came out.
Dang.
Yeah, I got a little graphic.
What a visual.
I mean, that's really what it felt like, though. So.
Yeah. So James is 7-3, and Traden's team has just fallen out of contention. Let's be honest, he's 3-7.
I'm done.
So yeah, we'll move on from that. Sorry for the visual there. But yeah, so we're this week with All-Star break coming up. I mean, there are some NBA topics that we can go into, but kind of a lot of weird, like almost like I guess political stuff happened in the NBA this week, and I thought we should talk about it. Before we get into those three, with the All-Star break coming up, it's time to do the first half of the season, biggest surprise, biggest disappointment. There's been a lot, I would say, in this NBA season. Eric's going to talk about this, but boys, if you have ones you want to interject with, please feel free to do so. So Eric, let's start on a positive note. Who's been the biggest surprise so far in the NBA season for you?
I got one team in the East, one team in the West.
Okay.
And, I guess I'll finally say it. I was wrong. The Philly 76ers, probably the biggest surprise to me in the East.
Actually, surprise in the East. Really?
Yeah. Because I said
you thought the Knicks were going to be number 4 in the East going on All-Star break.
Because I said the 76ers were weak, lazy, and slow. I remember saying it like the second week the basketball season began this year. And they can be every now and then, but this year they're pretty much not any of that. They're pretty powerful, dominant, good all-around team. In the West, I guess I'll say it to the Utah Jazz. All these kids keep getting on us in the power rankings. They're just a good all-around team so far. we'll see what happens in the second half of the season. I don't think they're going to hold on to that.
I think shit on for having them first.
I think they have a good team, but I don't think they're going to survive as much in the second half of the season when they're going to play some tougher teams and getting them into a playoff series. They're going to go deep with some tough teams. I don't know if they could finish off series though. So those are my biggest surprises. James doesn't agree with me, but it's okay.
Yeah, James, you will go ahead.
You just said that they're going to play some tough teams in the second half, and they played all the toughest teams in the first half already. They play in the West. They played all the West teams a lot, which is the toughest teams in this league. So if they play some of the East teams the second go around, they're probably going to demolish them just as much.
But it's going to make them not as good because they're playing weaker teams, So then they're just not going to be ready for the West teams once they play them again. That's what's going to happen. Because I don't like the Jazz and I don't want them to win. So,
okay, so I can see what you're saying about the 76ers. I know you were hating on them early, so I kind of like the fact that you picked them as your biggest surprise because I know you've shit on them a lot on this podcast. But James is right. The biggest surprise is the Knicks. I mean, they're the Knicks of all teams. Like, in our entire lifetimes, they've always been terrible. I mean, they're the Knicks. Like, what else do you need to say? But you're right. James, you're right. They're the 4 seed. They're a game over 500. Think about the teams that they're above in the standings right now. The Miami Heat, they were in the NBA Finals last year. The Boston Celtics, they were one of the teams to beat in the East. The Toronto Raptors, they beat the Golden State Warriors 2 years ago in the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers, the Knicks are having an incredible season, and good for them. I hope they can continue to do this. And then in the West, maybe a big surprise team is the Spurs. They're the 5 seed. I mean, if you read my power rankings, it always starts out with, do not count out Greg Popovich. Done. That's all you really need to say. He's the best coach in the NBA. It's not even a question. But let's go, Eric, let's go back to disappointments. Maybe we'll get another hot take.
Oh God, here we go.
So so we started off happy. We're gonna go now sad. What teams or team have been the biggest disappointment in your eyes so far first half of the season?
3.
Okay.
3. After this month of February, the Celtics have become a disappointment. Finally, you guys agree with me. I see it in your nods and your faces.
First time all night. Good job, Eric.
But another thing is when Alex asked me, like, maybe it was like a month ago when Marcus Smart went down, like, how are the Celtics going to be? I was like, they'll be fine. Like, they're a good team. They got depth, got glue guys. They got a lot of good players that step up. I was wrong. They've gone 7-9 the month of February, and they've been losing to some bad teams. Of course, they came back a 16-point lead that the Clippers had on them. They came back and beat us. But without Marcus Smart, I guess he's pretty important for that team. Another team disappointment, the Wizards. It's not like we expect them to be that good, but they did get Westbrook. You think when you get an NBA superstar like Westbrook, a guy that hustles, gives you full energy every night, that you're going to have a better team. I thought him and Bradley Beal would just be a better combo. They are battling every night. They've been on a better little streak. They're going to battle for that 8th seed. We'll see if they get it. My team in the West, biggest disappointment. Yeah, the Clippers. We can't beat a fucking good team when push comes to shove. In the grind time, the prime time, 2 minutes left, we're playing the Nets twice, winning, lose that game, can't hold on to the lead. When it comes down to the crunch time, yesterday to the Bucks, crunch time, 2 minutes, holding on to the lead. They scored 9 unanswered points on the Clippers yesterday. I think the Clippers, when they beat good teams, they win by 12 or 15 points. We kind of saw that against the Nuggets a little bit last year and the Mavs in the playoffs. But then those close games, those close matchups, and they come down to the wire in the last 2 minutes, they can't fucking finish them for some reason. And they need to learn how to do that in the second half of the season, or it's going to be another shit show in the playoffs. I could just see it happening. So they're a little disappointing right now to me. Even though their record doesn't say that, I'm a little worried about them just being able to finish off against good teams.
Okay, so starting with the Clippers, they are one of the elite teams in the association. They have a very good chance of winning the whole thing. But you are right. It is a worry if you are a Clippers fan. I mean, they had the 3-1 lead against Nuggets last year that blew away. They have been losing to good teams when they've had leads, and it's been an ongoing problem for them for pretty much this entire season. I think they can turn it around. I do think that they still have a very good shot, but when it gets down to the playoff times and crunch times, they're gonna need to close out games. PG's been hurt. Kawhi's been missing some games too. They haven't really gotten in their groove, and that was kind of their problem last year too. I still think the Clippers are going to be okay, but I completely understand what you're saying there. For me, I think I was high on the Pelicans, and they're kind of a disappointment to me. But also the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, they're only a game. I mean, it's kind of crazy because they're a game above 500, which would mean if they were in the East, they'd be the 4 seed. But in the West, they're the 9 seed. Luka Doncic, you guys have heard me. I'm all on the Luka Doncic train. Maybe he just needs more help. They've been a little bit of disappointment to me. Going back to the East, I love the Celtics pick. They kind of ruined my take on your segment, Eric, where I'm saying you only really need a superstar, and they have 2 of them, and they're not doing well, so it doesn't really work out that great for me. But also the Pacers, they're 3 games under 500. They have really good players too. The Pacers should be much better than that. We'll have to see what these teams do. We're only halfway through, but it's a quick season again. And again, we'll talk more about the expanded playoffs as it kind of comes more into fruition. But
I actually got one more surprise team. Just a quick mention. I got to give James some credit on the fucking Warriors. I think they will make the playoffs this year, and I didn't expect them to, but hopefully they don't.
I mean, I've also shit on the Warriors quite a bit, so we'll move on from that. These next 3 topics are going to be a little off brand, I guess, for us. They're going to be a little bit more serious. I mean, we have had some serious topics on this podcast before. But starting off with number 1, there's been some conversation around the NBA, and one of the current stars in the NBA, Kyrie Irving, voiced his opinion on changing the logo. Who is Jerry West? He's one of the all-time greats in basketball. He's currently helps run the Clippers organization. He wants to change the logo from Jerry West to Kobe. I thought we had to talk about this. It seems like a really drastic thing to do. Obviously with Kobe's unexpected death, he's kind of come into like this godlike persona. And like, speaking from someone who loves Kobe, I'm a huge Lakers fan. I don't actually think they should do this. But Trayden, what do you think on Kyrie's comments about changing the logo for the entire association from Jerry West to Kobe?
Yeah. So I took this topic of the topics you gave us because it took me out of my comfort zone. So I want everyone to bear with me on my points here. I come from a non-typical. I'm in like sport of basketball. I am white. That doesn't help. And I just so my perspective might be a little bit different, but I hope that you enjoy it either way. Anyway, so the logo of the NBA is obviously Jerry West, but back in 1969, when the logo was created, the NBA was in a, I would say, battle with another basketball association, vying for who's going to be the main basketball association of the United States. And they brought in Siegel as a gentleman who basically does marketing and does logo creation. And he found a picture of Jerry West in this position, in this athletic straight up position. And he looked at it and he said, this silhouette really gives gives light to the game of basketball. It's an athletic position. It kind of exemplifies the speed of the game, the kind of thing that basketball is all about. So it's very generic. Now the problem the problem I think is that everyone figured out that it was Jerry West at the end, because I think that if it was nobody, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because I think in reality, the NBA logo is meant to represent the NBA, not one player, not the superstars. We had this conversation before. There's players that we've seen in the past, and there's players that we're going to see in the future. And the NBA logo is meant to showcase the NBA. It's generic. It's normal. It's just the way things go. And I think that if you give the logo to anybody, and I'll get into the Kobe one later, but if you give it to someone, let's say it's Kareem's hook shot or whatever, it kind of makes it about the player as opposed to about the league. And that's what I'm kind of concerned about when I look at that way. Now, albeit the league is predominantly created, or I'm sorry, it's been driven by, African Americans, Black people and it's grown that way. And and they have created this sport and created such love for the sport with the athleticism and what they've done. With that said, I don't think Kobe is the right person if they're going to change the logo. I don't think Kobe is the right individual. I know that I know that the last year has been tragic for players, and it's tough to say this because I'm talking to 3 Lakers fans and one who idolizes Kobe, but he's had a checkered past, and I think that's tough to kind of get over. The NBA is going to have to kind of get over that, but in reality, I think the NBA has a better way to honor Kobe, and I think that they just need to be patient on what that's going to be. But here's the reality, in my opinion: if you're going to change the logo, it needs to be from an original African American who really pioneered the game that we maybe don't talk about much. I'm looking at like a Don Barksdale. He's the first NBA superstar who was an African American. He was the first to join the Olympic team as an African American. He's timeless. He's he's not that he's generic, but he kind of represents the entire NBA as a whole. And to me, I think it'd be much more impactful to give the nod to someone who does not get paid millions like they do today, who faced extreme issues on and off the court back in the 40s and 50s. I mean, I know it's just not tolerated now, and I'm not saying that it's perfect by any means. We still have a long way to go, but we are not where we were back then, and they had to go through that, and they succeeded, and they paved the way for Kobe to be who he is, for LeBron to be who he is, for MJ to be who he is. So MJ shouldn't be on the logo. Kobe shouldn't be on the logo. Any of those players shouldn't be on the logo. I think it should be someone who really was a true pioneer to pave the way for the league to be what it is now. And if you're going to give it to an African American, I think Don Barksdale is the best option if you're going to change it at all.
Traden, that was an unbelievable take. That was incredible. We're just going to leave that and move on.
I would like to hear your guys' take on that.
I personally have nothing else to say. I think what you just said was incredibly heartfelt and amazing. Boys, if you have anything you want to put in, feel free to do so.
Traden, that was awesome. I mean, you really did, put a lot of thought into that. So that was great. Obviously myself being a huge Kobe fan, at first I'm like, hell yeah, I switched it to Kobe. But then when you do really think about it, everything you said about it representing the league and, giving another name to it, I think is amazing. It's something that, definitely was a very well thought out answer.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said, Traden. But if it was Kobe, what shot would it be?
That's the question.
Would it be like his classic like fadeaway? Like
it's got to be the fadeaway jumper. Yeah,
got to be the fadeaway, huh?
Gotta be.
Yeah,
James, you were gonna say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna play the other side of the coin here. Traden, you made a lot of great points, a lot of things I didn't even think about. But It's gonna be tough to put into words, but like one of your biggest points was you didn't want to make it about the player. You wanted to make it about the association. You wanted to make it about the league, and that's why you didn't want Kobe on there as one of your main points. And it's like Kobe changed the game for more people than Don Barksley. I forget his name. I'm sorry. No, like I don't not respect that guy, but
in the meantime, yeah,
Kobe changed the game. He influenced more people than that guy did, and his reach goes far and far and far and far. Like when you shoot something to a basket right now, like something in the trash, what do you say? You say Kobe, and it's like you're not even a basketball fan, but you still do it anyway. He changed the game for so many people, and the other point you made was he has a checkered past, so he shouldn't be on there. And the reality is that nobody's perfect. And by only putting people who are deemed as perfect on the outside to be your logo, it's now painting a picture that every single person out here has to be perfect and putting an unreasonable expectation on them to be perfect. And that causes emotional scarring. It causes distress. It causes anxiety. That's not the case. Nobody's perfect. People have a checkered past and people get past it. Convicts, people make mistakes. But a lot of them can rehab and become better people from it. And should they be scarred forever? Should they have to wear a scarlet letter from that point forward? Possibly, if the crime is heinous enough. But the fact of the matter is people can change and people can grow better from mistakes that they've made.
I like that.
Throwing out some literature. Look at that. Scarlet letter.
I like that. I would push back on this. God forbid something happens to a LeBron James in the same manner that what happened to Kobe. Do we have this discussion? Do we have this discussion when if something happens to Michael Jordan? I mean, there's got to be a line, and that's what you're fighting. Is that are we going to have this conversation every time that something tragic happens to someone who's changed the game in more ways than we can even put into words? And I would say that an individual like I totally am with you. I'm just pushing back on that one, I guess.
I think the stars are kind of aligning in more ways than one. In one way, the first way is that the logo has been around for a long time. So it could be time for an upgrade. And two, right now we're at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. We've gone through a lot of cultural changes and a lot of opening people's minds to different things that have happened in the past that people have not really thought about before. And so to do it right now in this time period when all this is happening seems right. Kyrie's major argument was that Black people built this league.
You're right.
African Americans built this league. And that was his main point. It wasn't to disparage Jerry West and all that he's done. It wasn't to disparage the NBA. It was to point out the fact that, hey, African Americans still aren't getting the respect that they deserve. And this is one way to show it. Putting Kobe on the logo.
I'm with you. And I just think that I guess my only point is I think that would be the wrong the wrong individual, but I think that wouldn't be a terrible option either. I think it's a good topic either way to have a discussion about anyway. But that's why I took it. It took me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I think you guys both did a really good point or made good points. It is tough, and that's why we're having this discussion. I don't know if there's one correct answer. I think there's a lot of points that can be made for and against. You guys both did a really good job. But kind of falling off of what James just said, the league, the NBA has a lot of very outspoken players. Kyrie, one of them for sure. He's stated earlier this season, he considered retiring and using his influence to help the Black Lives Matter movement, to help racial injustice, to move our society forward. And other players like LeBron have done that as well. Russell Westbrook just announced he's going to open a school in LA. On the other side, so Zoltan Ibrahimovic, we've talked about soccer once on this podcast, and we're into episode 30, whatever we're on. He's an international soccer star. He's played in both Europe and the United States. He came out and kind of called LeBron out specifically, saying, athletes, they get famous and then they start talking about politics. They shouldn't really do that. What do they know? And LeBron came back and said, look, I have a voice. I have the option to do this. And I do my research, and I'm not going to stop saying what I believe in. And James, you just made great points on, this Kobe logo debate. What do you think about both sides of this We can focus on these two guys. If you want to focus on athletes in general, talking about politics, we can. I'm going to kind of give the floor to you right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think Zlatan Ibrahimovic is wrong 100%. I believe that every single person on this earth has a right to voice their opinion. And just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you're not allowed to do so. They have a platform. They have a following. They can say what they want. Influencers on social media say what they want too. They don't get disparaged for it. A lot of people argue that because athletes make a lot of money and because they're not in like reality as in a regular person's reality day to day, that they don't know what the world is like, that they're going to make decisions and say things out of this euphoric world where nothing makes sense only to them, But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these athletes, if you look at their past, they didn't grow up rich. A lot of these guys had terrible childhoods that they relied on sports. They're so good at sports because they had to rely on it to get out. LeBron James, single mother household, like he lived in terrible places, had to move around like crazy, ends up being the best basketball player almost ever. He gets to voice his opinion. He's seen some things that we have not seen. He's seen more reality than a regular person has ever seen before. And it's crazy to think that people are disparaging him and saying, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, no, dude, we don't know what we're talking about. We're privileged. Me included. I'm colored skin, but I've always had a roof over my head. I've always had food on the table. I'm privileged. Some athletes are not. They haven't had parents. Some people haven't had parents. They've seen more things. Their reality is harsher than ours. They should be able to say what they want to say because they made it out of it. On the flip side of that, people are always like, let the politicians talk about politics. You stay in your lane and play sports. Politicians are liars. Politicians go up there and they talk politics to get elected. Again, to stay in office. Again, they will say whatever they can say in order to get reelected. Athletes, on the other hand, what do they gain from saying what their opinion is? They already have all the money in the world. Why would they lie to people and tell them wrong things? They're literally becoming the voice of the people. The politicians won't do it because they're afraid they won't get reelected. Athletes will say what they need to say because they don't care. Like, at the end of the day, they're still probably going to get a paycheck. They're still going to get to play the game they love. So they're going to say what they think and hope that it resonates with others and hope that other people can see it and it becomes a movement. Black Lives Matter was exacerbated by athletes. It got as big as it did because of athletes. Left to the politicians, it'd be squashed and nobody would ever hear about it. The world is changing. Athletes have voices. Everybody has a voice. If you have a platform, use it.
Damn, what a fucking take. What a fucking mic drop right there, James.
Damn
yeah,
good.
James, that was also incredible. This is not the first time LeBron's been called out. Laura Ingraham, she's a Fox News host or whatever she does. That was the whole shut up and dribble thing. That's kind of along the same lines. And instead it's a political reporter. And now it's another star athlete. I agree with you. Everyone has the right to their opinion. People are going to disagree with your opinion. That's why it's called a fucking opinion. Like, that's literally what the definition is. It's not a fact that it's opinion. Everyone has the right to voice their own opinion. And you know what? LeBron has seen things that the five of us have not seen on both directions. His childhood is not something that any of the five of us have ever experienced. And his adulthood is not something, unless we win the lottery, is probably something we're also not going to experience. So athletes are, James, you nailed it. They're some of the people that have seen both sides, and it's some of the only people that will ever see both of those sides. A lot of people, if they're born into privilege, they can continue to live their life into privilege. And a lot of people who are born into poverty never get the opportunity. They never get the support to move past that poverty to grow themselves. So I agree with you. I think, athletes can voice their opinions. You need to do it in a healthy manner. And I think LeBron and a lot of these guys in the NBA have done that in a really great way. Then there's other people like Curt Schilling, for instance, who has not done that in a great way. And he's going and just attacking people. And that's not the way to do it. We're not going to get into Curt Schilling because that's a mess right now. But if you can voice your opinion in a way that's honest and open, and then you're open to criticism and open to the conversation, I see no problem with having that conversation. That's that's how we grow as a society. This is getting really heavy. I really didn't mean for it to get this way, but this is where we're at, I guess. Last little topic for the night. Just like we were talking about with Kyrie, African Americans have really grown the sport of basketball, but it is a global sport. I mean, I talk about Luka Doncic as much as I possibly can, and he's a white guy from Eastern Europe. Asian Americans and Asians in general are huge basketball fans. I mean, look at what Yao Ming did for the NBA, and then look at what Jeremy Lin has done for the NBA. After Yao Ming retired, there really wasn't another huge Asian influence in the association. Jeremy Lin came in the early 2000s. Linsanity happened. He's kind of bounced around the league from there. He's currently in the Golden State Warriors G League, which is their kind of minor league system, or however you want to call it. And he's faced some criticism, and he came out this week and spoke about how on the court he's been called coronavirus. I'm obviously COVID originated in China, and I wanted to talk about that too. And Tyler, what do you like? I think it's really brave for Jeremy Lin to speak about this openly and call people out. What do you think on this Jeremy Lin story, and just kind of your thoughts on it all?
Yeah. I think the first thing, first of all, I didn't know Jeremy Lin was still playing basketball, so good for him. That fires me up. He's still balling and still doing his thing.
He had a hell of a night the other night, by the way. I think he put up like almost 40 points. Yeah, I mean that's awesome. Jeremy Lin was one of the biggest stories in basketball not too long ago, and for him to come out and talk about this stuff I think it's very important. I think with the coronavirus, there's been a lot of hatred towards Asian Americans because of the origin of the virus, and people kind of blame people from that area for it because that's how we are, unfortunately. We always blame other people, and we don't take a look at ourselves and really realize what did we do wrong. It's more what the other person did wrong, what did they do to me. It's classic victimizing yourself. And this is just another culprit of that kind of culture. And it's shameful, that we live in a world where this stuff happens. But it's important to notice it. It's important for people to speak out about it. We've seen a kind of a rise in a lot of Asian American hate crimes recently because of the virus, and it's a shame. And I hope that the more awareness that can be brought to it, the quicker change can happen. Obviously, we've seen a huge influence with the Black Lives Matter movement, and hopefully that is spurring change. I think change has already kind of started to unfold, and there are still a lot of members of our society that are the minorities, and Asian Americans are part of that, and there's still a lot of that needs to be done all across the board. So it's just, I think for me personally, it's frustrating to see this happen over and over again. But it's really important that we keep talking about it and we keep discussing it, both just with all these different types of situations, because it's not just Black Americans, it's not just Asian Americans. Pretty much every kind of minority is going through something like this, and it's important to talk about all of them. And it's I think for me it's just frustrating. I think it's just another that kind of salt in the wound, I guess, with this country right now. And hopefully people can learn from it. Hopefully, if you have any kind of if you have any kind of hatred towards the Asian American community, and if you blame Asians in general for the virus, you need to take a look at yourself, because this is not what it is. And it's honestly more our country's handling of it than anything else. So that's just really what needs to be said, and hopefully people can see it that way. And like I said,
props to Jeremy Lin for coming out and talking about it, because like I said, these are conversations that need to happen.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. I think it's really brave of him, and you're right. There's been a lot of focus on the Black Lives Matter movement, obviously completely understandable, and this whole kind of hatred towards Asian Americans because of the origin of the virus has kind of got swept under the rug, which is not entirely fair. And Jeremy Lin is, he's brave for saying this. He's an absolute baller. He's an NBA champion. He was on that Toronto Raptors team, and this has nothing to do with anything, but the dude's got some great hair. Jeremy Lin. So this NBA segment got a little heavy, but I think it's important that we talk about these things. I think some good points were said. But Traden, that's all I got. We'll probably get back to some lighthearted stuff next week, but a lot of crazy shit going on in the NBA this week. So
yeah, no, that was great discussion. I love it. Love it always. It's stuff that we need to talk about. And I'm glad we brought it up, and we all have good perspective. But that's it for the podcast this week. We hope you enjoyed. And if you guys have any, comments, if you guys want to tell us we're idiots, please do so on Instagram, YouTube. I think we're still posting on YouTube. James, are you still doing those TikToks? Are people engaging on that?
I've been busy, so not recently, but I will start this week again.
Good. And to everyone who reads my power rankings religiously, which is probably like 4 people.
They're really good, by the way. Seriously.
Was that?
They're super good.
Yeah. So that'll be up tomorrow. Sorry, I'm late. It's been busy. There's a lot of stuff in my life that is going on right now. So I'm just trying to catch up. But that's all I have. Fans, thank you. Guys, thank you for another great podcast. We look forward to bringing you another great one next week.